Hey guys, welcome to the Naxxramas card review with Dew. Now that they've got all the cards out, I think I'm going to do a review on them, so yeah, welcome. Let's jump on in, especially since none of these are organized in any real particular order. But, oh well. Starting off, we have Baron Riven. He is a 4-mana 1/7 with a text of, your minions trigger their death rattles twice. It'd be interesting to see him in a kind of priest deck, like the reinvention deck that Amaz made, which kind of bases itself around using Divine Spirit and Inner Fire to double a minion's health and then make their attack equal to their health. You could get a 14/14 Riven. So if you kind of made a weird sort of priest deck like that, comboed with Death Rattle, using Baron Riven, he could be pretty useful there. Other than that, I don't think he's going to be particularly useful in just about any other class, except for Death Rattle-based decks, because his text is the only upstanding thing about him. Otherwise, having 1/7 as your stats is absolutely horrible for a 4-drop. You don't play that kind of a card, unless there's something really valuable about its text. And in Death Rattle decks, you know, the text will be very valuable. I mean, holy crap, can you imagine, like with Cairn? You kill Cairn and you get 2 Banes. Ah! But no other deck is going to actually be able to utilize Baron Rivendare's stats, other than priests. So, I think he'll be most useful in priest decks, but yeah, I think he'll still be useful in Death Rattle-based decks. So, he seems like a decent enough card, I suppose. Next up, Dancing Swords. A 3-mana 4/4, really good stats for a 3-drop. The Death Rattle is your opponent draws a card. That's something you don't want to have happening. You don't want your opponent drawing cards. So, that is actually something you don't want to combo with Baron Riven. Death Rattle, your opponent draws 2 cards? Don't do that. That being said, the stats are phenomenal for a 3-drop, as I've said, and this can't be affected by Shadow Word's Pain or Death against priests, so this is a card that's definitely going to give a lot of problems to priests, and to just about every other deck it'll be problematic as well, because its stats are just up-the-wall phenomenal. Yeah. That being said, expending 2 cards to deal with this isn't actually that bad of an idea because of its Death Rattle, you know? You kill it and you get a card back, so dropping 2 cards into this thing to kill it, not bad value. Do I think it's going to break the game? No. I don't think this card is OP, I just think it is good, especially in any kind of aggro-type deck. So, yeah. Next up, Nubian Egg. This card is annoying as heck. It's a 2-mana 0/2 with a Death Rattle of summon a 4/4 Nubian. This is basically the same thing as Dancing Swords, but you have a small window to silence it before it becomes a Dancing Swords equivalent. Run this in a Warlock deck with Void Terror. Oh my god. Like right here. This comment. Void Terror plus this guy, a 4/4 on turn, and a 3/5 on the board on turn 3. Crazy. Or if you do this on turn 4 with a Power Overwhelming on the Nubian Egg, jeez, this card could get out of hand. So silence is going to be necessary against this thing, because you're going to expend a lot of cards trying to deal with it if you don't silence it. That being said, Ironbeak Owl, perfect counter to this thing. Perfect. So, yeah. That's the egg. I do not like this thing. I think this is going to be Priest's nightmare. So, yeah. That's my opinion on that one. Next up, Shade of Naxxramas. A 3-mana 2/2 with Stealth and an effect of, at the start of your turn, gain +1/+1. He's just going to be a card that requires you to expend board clear in some form. I think he'll be good against hunters, because Hunters don't have a good form of board clear that is not explosive trap. And he has stealth, so there's no other way to do AoE. So, yeah. He'll be kind of crazy in Miracle Rogues. That being said, Hunters, who will have the biggest problems dealing AoE to deal with this guy, do have Flare. So, yeah. Flare is going to be, like, quintessential in every Hunter deck now. Definitely. For Priests, this is just going to be the signal that you'd better have an Alchemy Circle of Healing in your hand, otherwise this thing is going to get out of hand. Master Spell will also be great against this thing, so, yeah. Yeah. That's Shade. Additionally, because it's only at the start of your turn game +1/+1 and not everyone's turn, this thing isn't going to get powerful all that quickly. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to wait 2 turns after playing it just to get it to a 4/4. That's pretty slow tempo. So, I don't think he's going to be OP. I think he's going to have potential. For example, Miracle Rogue. This thing's going to be a pain in the butt as a buff to Miracle Rogue, but you know, he's not OP. I don't think he's OP. I don't think he's going to really change the game meta all that much. Just, you'll see an increase in silence. That's it. And every other card in Naxxramas is going to do the same thing, so this isn't changing anything all that much. Undertaker, next up, is a 1-mana 1/2, with the text of whenever you summon a minion with Death Rattle, gain +1/+1. He's I mean, he's not going to be powerful on the turn he's played. Especially if that turn is turn 1. Your opponent can summon something better than that. So, either you summon him on turn 1, if you're going first, and your opponent has a coin and he can put out an answer to it. Like, you know, any 2-drop 3/2 will answer this perfectly. And if your opponent goes first and you summon this, it'll be his turn 2 anyway, and he can do the exact same thing. So, the only plus side to it is, I suppose, if you combo Undertaker with a Nubian Egg, you get a 2/3, which is a pretty good answer to a 3/2. But I don't think Undertaker is going to be any sort of overpowered thing. So, yeah, Smite. Holy Smite. Goodbye. That 2 health just means he's going to be a little bit easy to deal with. And in decks that are going to be running more silence, especially if you have AoE silence like Master Spell, it's not a card that worries me. So, it's a nice little addition to the whole Death Rattle theming that comes with Naxxramas, but Next up, Poison Seeds. This is a Druid card. It is a 4-mana spell that reads Destroy all minions and summon 2/2 treants to replace them. My first comment. Finally, Druids have a way to actually answer creatures. That has been Druid's biggest drawback as a class. You have no hard removal at all. You have bigger minions than any other class could ever dream of, more taunt than they could hope for. You have innervates, you can accelerate tempo to a ludicrous amounts, but you don't have removal. The only way to answer your opponent's creatures is with damaging spells and with your own creatures. So, yeah. That was Druid's problem. And this thing doesn't even actually fix that all that much, because while you can remove big creatures, you still get these little 2/2s in place, and unless you plan to combo this with like a Starfall, it's not amazing. Especially if your opponent's playing a Death Rattle deck. Like, holy crap, could you bite yourself in the butt with this? So, yeah. It's not going to help against aggro decks either, because you're just giving them a bunch of 2/2s to replace their minions. In some cases, that might even help them. So, yeah. Yeah, that's Poison Seeds. Next up, Anubar Ambusher. This is a rogue card. It is a 4-mana 5/5 with a Death Rattle of return a friendly minion to your hand. This card's Death Rattle is random. Hearthstone itself has confirmed that. So you don't get to target which minion you're returning to your hand. It's not like you could do this, and then turn 5 play a Leroy, find a way to kill this off, and then use the Death Rattle to bounce Leroy guaranteed. Unless it's the only other card on the field, so. Yeah, the Death Rattle is random, so the only way to guarantee a target is for there to only be one other minion on the board. That being said, that's strong stats for a 4-drop, just like with Dancing Swords. However, since the Death Rattle will likely be triggered by your opponent, yeah, since the Death Rattle can be triggered by your opponent, if you summon a big minion, say like a Van Cleef, and your opponent decides he's going to play well around it, he could actually use this to remove your own minions. So this Ambusher could... It has its positives, but, you know, you summon an Ambusher, your opponent just waits, you summon another minion next turn that's really powerful, a Van Cleef, or, I don't know, just whatever. Leroy. Gadget Zan in Miracle Rogues. Your opponent shoots a Shadow Word Death at this, even if your Gadget Zan is stealthed, boom, it just got bounced. So, people can play around this, and I don't think it will be OP. The stats are nice, but, yeah, not OP. I actually think Rogue is getting shortchanged with this card. I don't think it's going to be run very much. For the same reason Kidnapper's not run. The only time you actually need that Death Rattle, you might as well just use Shadow Step instead. And otherwise your opponent's going to use it against you, so. Yep. Next up, Death's Bite. This is Warrior's card. It is a 4-mana 4/2 weapon. Oh, hello, True Silver. Like Warriors needed another powerful weapon. Really? You already gave him Fiery War Axe, you already gave him Gorehowl, you already gave him Arcane, or not Arcane, Arcanite Reaper. You had to give him a 4th weapon? It's like Hearthstone wants pirates to be viable or something. Holy crap. Yeah. I could imagine pirate decks actually becoming viable because of this card. Because previously pirates are based around weapons, and Warrior is the one class that has the greatest number of weapons. Technically, Paladin's equal, but you cannot argue that, what is it, like Light's Justice or something? That 1-mana 1/4 hammer is anywhere near as good as Fiery War Axe. True Silver doesn't compare to Arcanite. Arcanite just gives off more damage. And Gorehowl is better than Tyrion's Death Rattled Ashbringer. For board clear. Not necessarily for damage to the opponent's face, but still, you can play Gorehowl guaranteed. Your opponents could silence Tyrion. I've done it before, and completely make the Ashbringer a non-factor. So, the only other class that could get a weapon count similar to Warriors has worse weapons. Now, maybe Pirates will become viable because they play around weapons and, yeah. On top of that, the Death Rattle of deal 1 damage to all minions. It is all minions, your own included. I don't know. It could be a good kind of counters aggro card, I suppose. I don't know. I don't think the Death Rattle of the weapon is going to be that big of a factor. I wish there were a way to silence weapons. That'd be a lot of fun. Silencing Gorehowl or Doomhammer. And now this thing. But, yeah, that means when this weapon dies, it's basically getting an additional 1 attack if you're throwing it at creatures. And I'd be interested to see if this spawns pirate decks as a legitimate deck type for Warriors. Because otherwise I can't see this really being all that viable. Yeah. Next up, Avenge, Paladin's class-specific card. It is a 1-mana secret, just like all Paladin secrets. The text reads, when one of your minions dies, give a friendly minion +3/+2. It is noteworthy, this secret will not activate if you only have 1 minion on the board, and it is slain. It will only work if there actually is a target to give that +3/+2 to. It's a typical Paladin thing, you know? This is basically a secret that is a way earlier game version of Blessing of Kings. Hello, more silence. That's going along with the Naxxramas theming. So, silence away, boys. We're going to be needing it. Not OP, because again, silence is going to be becoming a lot more valuable. On top of that, this secret will only trigger, you know, when you have 2 minions on the board. That means this thing isn't going off until at least turn 3. And, you know, there's Iron Beak Owls by then. You could coin a Spellbreaker, Mass Dispel, Priest, regular Silence card. For Hunters, Keeper of the Grove is there. You know. It would be very interesting to see this comboed with Noble Sacrifice, though. I want to see the synergy between those two. Because that could be some really interesting synergy. But yeah, silence. Just like the rest of Naxxramas. Next up, Duplicate. It is a 3-mana mage secret, just like all other mage secrets, 3 mana. The text reads, when a friendly minion dies, put 2 copies of it into your hand. This card is not any good, actually. Okay, here we go with the reasoning. Polymorph does not trigger this. If your really powerful minion you wanted to have duplicated gets polymorphed or turned into a frog by shamans, then sucks. Secrets can't trigger on your turn. You can't trigger them on your own, so, you know, you can't kill off your powerful minion against one of your opponent's minions to have the secret trigger. Your opponent has to trigger it. And if you have any minion other than that super powerful minion on the board, your opponent will just kill that little thing. That's not the super powerful minion you want duplicated, and then you get a little crap minion duplicated in your hand. So because secrets can't trigger on your turn, this is not going to be a good card, because your opponent gets to control which minion gets duplicated. And otherwise, you know, paladins can just reduce your powerful minion's attack to 1. I guess it might be okay against druids. That's about all I can see. Every other class has something. Sap. Boom. With hunters, they can just go aggro and ignore that minion up until you summon something else, and they can erase you easily. Shamans have Hex. Priests have no good answer to this. Hunters have Flare too, by the way, so that's not going to help against them. Same thing with that Paladin secret, by the way. If that tries to synergize with Noble Sacrifice, Flare, OP. Yeah, I just don't think Duplicate's going to do that much. I don't even think it'll be ran. It's just, you don't have any control over it. You have no control. Next up, Voidwalker. A 4-mana 3/4 demon, Warlock-specific card with the death rattle of put a demon from your hand into the battlefield. This is random. For whatever reason, all death rattles are going to be random. There is no targetable death rattle in this game. Hearthstone just never seems to specify it, so that needs to be clarified. So this will put a random demon from your hand into the battlefield. Just like with the Larmobot, it will not trigger battle cries, so, you know, you could do something like summon Lord Jaraxxus, and now you just have a 3/15 on the board. That'd be fun. Yeah. I don't know. Its stats aren't that great for a 4-drop. I don't see this being all that good of a card. Yeah, I don't think Voidwalker is going to do that much to the meta either. Next up, Reincarnate. It is a Shaman card. Costs 2 mana. The text reads, destroy a minion, then return it to life with full health. No, this does not mean that any of the effects on it will be duplicated. By summoning that new card, it'll be completely fresh. No buffs, like if Blessing of Kings is given to your minion for whatever reason and you reincarnate it. That won't stay. Rockbiter Weapon won't stay on it. That being said, this will create Miracle Shaman as a potential. You drop Leroy, give him 2 Rockbiters, and Wind Fury. That's going to be 6 plus additional 6 from Rockbiter for 6 mana. That's 12. Wind Fury is another 2, 8 mana. To deal 24 damage now, because 12 times 2 is 24. You use Reincarnate for the last 2 mana. Boom, 6 more damage from the new Leroy. Pow. 30 damage in 1 turn. Miracle Shaman achieved. That being said, that is 5 cards that you need to have in your hand to get that combo off. It's going to spawn something like Miracle Rogue, if that's even possible for Shamans, because you're going to need a Gadget Zan to be digging and digging and digging while you try to drop this combo. So, yeah. This will also be interesting to see with Sylvanas, because this will trigger Death Rattles. Yeah. So that's the biggest change I can see coming. I don't know, Shamans already have that one-turn kill kind of potential. Instead of using this, if they just have like double lightning bolt or something like that, or, you know, anything that's already on the board, they can still pretty much kill you. And if you're above 24 health by, you know, turn 8 with Shamans, you've done something really right. Yeah. So that's that. Next up, Dark Cultist. Priest's class-specific card. A 3-mana 3/4 with the Death Rattle of give a friendly minion plus 3 health. This also creates a Priest OTK possibility where you drop this card on turn 3, summon a Light Spawn turn 4, assuming your opponent does nothing about it, which I highly doubt because silence is going to be necessary in this game. You know, Light Spawn's not going to be allowed to live. But, or allowed to both live and be unsilenced. So, if that happens. Actually, even if it's silenced, I guess you could pull this off. But, what happens is you summon Light Spawn turn 4, assume this thing lives through turn 4. It's your turn, turn 5. You kill off Dark Cultist, and it gives the plus 3 health buff to the Light Spawn. You drop 2 Divine Spirits to double its health. 8 times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Play 1 Inner Fire, and boom, you have a 32/32 Light Spawn. Whap! Game! And that combo actually is immune to silence. But, that is 5 cards that you very specifically need by turn 5 for this combo. So, I don't see it happening, but it's a possibility. And, yeah. I don't think this card is particularly OP. It's got really good stats for a 3-drop, but something like Injured Blade Master's got better stats. I don't even know if this is going to be used in Priest decks, to be quite honest. Because Priest so far has been a lot about combos and playing in really tricky ways. Like, you know, the deck I've got right here kind of shows that you don't play this for powerful minions. Everything in here has combo potential. And Dark Cultist isn't something that's good for comboing unless you want to do that Light Spawn combo. But that's a 5-card, very specific combo. And, yeah. I don't know. Meh. It'll be interesting. I'm not a master deck builder, I've told you guys that. We'll see what Dark Cultist does. Next up, Web Spinner. A 1-mana 1/1 with a Death Rattle of draw a random beast card. No, this does not have to be a beast that is in your deck, interestingly enough. So, should be some interesting mechanics with that, but I don't think it's going to be that great. Yeah. Eh. 1 sec. Okay. Checking the time on this, I'm probably going to cut this into 2 segments. I'll take a quick break in between them. So, yeah, web spinner. I don't know. I don't think it'll do that much. And that's actually it for the first string of cards. I'll get to the rest of them in a little bit. That's it for part 1 of the Naxxramas card review. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be back in a little bit. Yeah. See you then.